Good morning, one and all, and thank you very much for tuning into episode 238 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, coming to you live on YouTube, somewhat unannounced. So please forgive me if those of you out there who like to prepare yourselves for the live episodes. This one hasn't really been trailed very much, but you'll be able to watch the recording even if you haven't been able to tune in for the live. For the benefit of the few people who may be able to tune in to the live plan for today, it's just two very, very quick, very brief videos. One in which we're going to focus on these new releases from Zegna, and then we'll take a 2-minute break and come back with a showcase of a new independent brand that I really wanted to bring to your attention before the end of the year. So before we smell these, oh, somebody is watching. Tashara is saying hello. Hello back to you. Thanks very much for tuning in. Before we smell these, I should say, please do consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already done so. Click on the little bell so that you get notifications of new videos. And also do please consider supporting my work on Ko-fi. You will find information on all of that in the video description below. And whether you are watching live or you're watching the recording, feel free to leave a comment, ask the question. I get round to most of them. Pine Rocks is here as well, saying good morning from London. Fahmi is saying hello, good evening from Indonesia. It's been a while, finally can join again. Well, I did think that the eastern part of the world might find this time slot a little bit easier, and sure enough, we've also got AD saying hello from Australia. So you're all very, very welcome. Okay, Zegna is a brand. Of course, their perfumes up until this point have been done by Estee Lauder. Estee Lauder have got the license, have had the license, I should say, to do the Zegna scents, and they've been. I mean, it's not fair to say that they've been ignored, because they haven't been ignored at all. In fact, we've talked a lot about them on this channel. But I guess maybe just in the sort of general out there in the ether, they don't get as much attention as you would think they deserve, because by and large, their perfumes tend to be pretty good. They've got one of my favorite ouds. Their cardamom is really great. They did the Elements of Man collection, which sadly was very short-lived, and I seem to remember that I liked a few of those as well. There you go, Woozy saying the EDP of Florentine Iris is my favorite at the moment. A few more people tuning in, and Tashara's making Christmas cake. Ooh, send us your recipe. And maybe it's because their perfume their perfume output in some ways feels rather mainstreamy in how it's marketed, even though a lot of it is also only available in quite high-end shops. I don't know what it is, and yet they don't seem to have attracted the kudos that I think they deserve. And also, let's watch this space, because there was some news, what was it, about 6 weeks ago, maybe 8 weeks ago, that Lauder have actually sold off all of their what they call designer perfumes, so the likes of Donna Karan. I would imagine that also includes Tommy Hilfiger, and I guess it also means Zegna. So these have just come out. I guess they're going to keep going with them and see how they do, but does that mean that we're not going to get any more Zegnas under the Lauder name? I don't know. So this range, it's a trio. And we're meant to call it triple stitch, okay? So it's got the sort of triple X logo here, but we're meant to refer to it as triple stitch, and they have come out as a threesome, and they are called Cyprium, Charcoal, and Verdigris. Verdigris and Cyprium have been composed by Alexis Grugeon, and Charcoal is a Frank Voelkl composition. As you would imagine, when you have three, there's always going to be, like, you expect there to be one really, really good one, a standout, and then there's going to be the one where you go, okay, well, they clearly just needed to release that one because that's going to be the most commercial one. Although I think there are two here that actually are worth mentioning. Let's get the least interesting one out of the way first, and that's Cyprium. Let's have a quick spray. I do not intend to spend a huge amount of time on these or dwell on them, but I just wanted to mention them in the video because they are worth checking out. Tell me what you think of the bottles, by the way, because they've got this sort of molten effect, which either looks effective or a bit cheap. and I haven't quite decided yet. And I have a feeling that it wasn't cheap to make, because I guess making bespoke, maybe that gives you a better sense of what it looks like if I show it to you that way. So it's sort of meant to be lava, breaking the mold, I think, is the idea, but it feels less like breaking the mold and more like melting the mold or scorching the mold, like molten plastic. But I don't know. Let us know what you think. Bit cheap in my opinion, says Catsy, although they don't feel cheap to handle. Hello from Belgium, says Quentin Mathieu. Bonjour, Quentin. And Catsy is also watching from Edinburgh. Khadija says, don't like that bottle design at all. Okay, so Cyprium is, as you may have guessed from the name, a fairly ordinary, fairly generic kind of modern, masculine, cedary, woody scent with probably a very, very strong dose of isoe super and materials like cypriol. I'll just tell you what the brand's blurb on it is. When cedarwood atlas meets a fiery lava accord. Well, it's not, I mean, yes, cedarwood lots in the form of isoe super. It's not particularly fiery. Triple Stitch Cyprium is a woody sheep fragrance that forges a profound new balance between raw, rugged nature and modern aromatics with wild violet accords, fresh herbs, and the essence of copper. Well, yeah, pretty generic stuff. We can kind of move on from this one very, very quickly. The one that is the sort of most obvious crowd pleaser to the sort of crowd that you and us and me hang out in and probably watches this video is Charcoal, the Frank Voelkl composition. That one, I would imagine, is the one that will get a fair amount of love from the fragrance community. Yeah, see, it reminded me, when I first smelt it, of that kind of rubbery, leathery, subtle black feel of Annick Menado's Bulgari Black, but with the addition of, actually an unexpected addition of sweetness, because there's a very definite sugary, vanillic thing happening in the base. Jodik saying, hello from Slovakia. Yes, they look like Zara perfumes. Yeah, you're not wrong, actually. there is something a bit Zara about. Well, maybe they'll do well. The bottles look naff, says Andy. The molten is one thing, but shiny molten is a step too far. Again, I don't disagree. Love Bulgari Black, says Jeannie. And good morning from California, says, whoa, gosh, that is pretty early there. What time is it there? It must be, what, like 3 a.m. or something like that? But charcoal is very, very instantly likable, very, very easily wearable. I like the fact that even though it's called charcoal, it isn't actually all black. It's a sort of combination of white and black, a combination of burnt and sweet, combination of shiny and matte. There are interesting things happening in this one. The brand's own blurb is that it's saffron meeting a mineral carbon accord. I would go more with the mineral carbon rather than saffron. If the saffron is there, I guess it is there, but it's very, very gentle. Triple Stitch Charcoal is an oriental woody fragrance that imparts a lasting and inspired impression with explosive notes of black pepper, yes, certainly, limbinol, LME, and the essence of graphite. And there is something mineralic, calcified, pencil-like, graphite-like, granite-like about it. I guess maybe if there is a criticism to be made, is that you might want, oh, Valzazel saying nearly 2:30 a.m., so pretty late. Gosh, well, thank you very much. So I guess you've stayed up? Please don't tell me you got up just because you got a notification on your phone. Andy's saying, I'm not aware of these perfumers. Have they done other things I might know? Well, certainly you'll be aware of Frank Voelkl, who did. Oh, I always get this wrong, don't I? He did Santal 33 for Le Labo, and he's done some work for Veronique Gabay. He's definitely one that you may be aware of, so just Google him. But what I was going to say is that if there is a criticism to be made, is that I think if you've got a scent like charcoal, you want it to be quite loud. Maybe what's interesting about it is that it's the kind of thing that would normally be loud, but is actually toned down quiet, kind of like Bulgari Black. But it's very, very easily likable, well put together, impressive. You know, you could probably see it creating an interesting kind of statement. You know, the sort of authoritative but subtle sort of statement. They actually sound a little bit comme des garçons-ish, says Quentin. Yeah, that's a good comparison to make, and maybe there is something, but they're not as odd as some of the comme des garçons, except maybe for the last one. Now, I think this is the most interesting one. So charcoal is the most easily likable one. Verdigris by Alexis Grugeon is the one that I found the strangest, the most unsettling, but also in a way the most compelling, the one that I keep coming back to. I wore it last night because I thought, you know, if I'm going to do this video, let's see how it develops. It's really, really strange in a good way, but fascinating too, because it's got so many contrasting things that seem to be happening in it all at the same time. And it does somehow tie in with this idea, because verdigris, unless I'm mistaken, is basically the substance that you get when on the surface of copper, when copper oxidizes. Oxidizes? You know what I mean. And so it's got a kind of slightly off-putting, rusty, bitter, sour feel to it, but also has a beauty of its own. And all of those qualities are in here, expressed through greenness and metallic notes, and also very, very marked aldehydes. It's not often that you get perfumes that are overtly marketed at men and are also very, very strongly and strikingly aldehydic. And this one is. It's also got a kind of spiky, woody, ambery thing happening in the base, but not overly done. And that combination of the metallic feel, the green, very, very cold green, the aldehydes and the woody ambers creates something that really feels quite original. Certainly one of the more striking compositions I've smelt this year. And as I say, curiously unsettling. Sometimes you like perfumes to be unsettling because it's interesting if they make you just feel just a tiny little bit uncomfortable and make you keep going back to them. I think Rodrigo Flores Roux put it best. He said that when he composes a perfume, he always wants to put in the equivalent of a pebble or a little stone in the shoe, the thing that kind of keeps bugging you, not to the extent where you need to actually really stop and take your shoe off and get the stone out, because you can live with it for a bit, but you keep noticing it and it keeps making you think, what is that? What is that? What's going on? And Verdigris is definitely the scent from this trio that has that, what's going on here? This is a bit strange. And also because of that, I suppose it feels futuristic. It feels, you know, like the smell of an android, or if you were going to a fancy dress party dressed as a kind of androgynous android. There's an androgynous quality to it as well. I found it really curious. What does the brand say? The brand says, when cardamom, essential oil, and there is the sort of coolness of cardamom in there for sure, meets an icy winter accord. Triple Stitch Verdigris is a woody, watery fragrance, not so much of the watery, don't worry, that reveals its true self through an infallible trail scent of liquid metal, warm spice, thyme, violet leaves, and titanium accords. And if that sounds weird, well, then that's a good thing, because it is all in here. It is all in here. So if you find yourself in a retail establishment and you go past these, I would say check out the Verdigris. It's commendably strange, commendably strange. What have you all been saying? Andy says, quite an original concept for a mainstream men's brand. I would agree with that. Tachara saying, hate when that happens, but I don't know what you're talking about now. I love androgynous fragrance, says Cutie Camille. Is that what you were up to when you were wearing it recently, says Cat C. I've lost the thread. I don't know what you're talking about anymore. But there you go. So the Triple Stitch collection from Zegna, certainly those two worth your time. Maybe this one, not so much. But thank you very much for tuning in. And if you're sticking around for the lives, we'll be back in a couple of minutes with a showcase of a new-ish independent brand. See you very, very soon. Thank you for watching.